What's up, people? Welcome to a beautiful day somewhere along the south, don't crash into a hedge, Smo, somewhere along the southwest-ish, I think, area of the Isle of Wight. So, continuing story time with Smo yet again. I'm sorry if you're getting tired of these, by the way, but I have a lot of stories to tell, especially from back in my modified car days, because a lot of shit went down back then. Today's story is about the time I made my mother cry. Oh, bless her. I feel so bad for her. So, I've owned my Evo 5 GSR. Is that a dead end? It is. For not long, actually. I only owned the Evo for a few months because, to be perfectly honest, I got a little bit bored of it. I did. The Pulsar that I sold to buy my Evo 5 was faster than my Evo 5, which is a shame. I found an absolutely gorgeous red single turbo converted UK spec RX-7 for sale in Birmingham, and I wanted it bad. I managed to kid my dad into driving up with me to go and look at this car. So we took the Evo and we drove it up to Birmingham, and we met with this guy Dave. Lovely guy, had a lisp. I don't know why I remember that, I just do. So we pull up outside Dave's house, okay? This beautiful red RX-7 with black, sorry, not black, gunmetal rotor grid wheels is just sat there. My favourite wheel. My favourite wheel. They just look so goddamn beautiful. So to cut a long story short, everything seems good. Dave's happy, I'm happy. We agree to swap cars, which to me was a giant win, because at the time my Evo was only worth about 7 grand or so, and his RX-7 was worth closer to 10. So I was like, fuck yeah, if I can get this guy to swap, I'm onto a winner. Real winner. So it worked out. We swapped cars, and I drove this RX-7 home with Dad, which was an experience, right? Because this car was hugely powerful. Big single turbo converted, built by a company called Hayward Rotary. And it was a fresh build as well. It only done a couple of thousand miles since it was done. Side ported and all that kind of good stuff. So she was built and ready to go. And holy Jesus, was that car quick. But it was rocking a horrendous triple plate clutch to deal with the power, which meant that trying to pull away was a mission and a half. You had to, you know when you accidentally give a car too much revs, not enough clutch, and you end up riding the clutch pretty heavily, and you look like a twat? Well, that's the only way that you could pull away in this car. So unfortunately, unless you were already moving, you had to make yourself look a total bellend to anybody watching nearby. One other story that I remember from this car, unrelated to the crying thing, but there's a place on the Isle of Wight called Ventnor. The entire town is super steep. And one time I was following someone in a yellow Cinquecento, I think that's what they were called. They stalled going up a hill. And I knew that I was fucked. Right? I had my buddy Phil with me in the passenger seat, and I was on a drive with some friends of mine, so there was a convoy of like 3 or 4 of my buddies behind us. And she stalled. And I was like, well, I'm fucked. I am fucked. I'm on a steep hill like this in a car that's difficult enough to pull away in anyway, and so in order to reach the top of the hill after this person finally managed to get out of the way, I had to deliberately stall the car repeatedly by dumping the clutch so that the car would lurch forward and get closer to the top of the hill each time. It was just stupid. It was so impractical. But, you know, I was at an age where I didn't give a fuck. I had a cool car, it was super fast, it sounded amazing, it looked amazing. I didn't give a shit what kind of price I had to pay to drive that car. I loved it. So I had to lurch the car forward to reach the top of the hill. Moving on from this story. So we get the car home, everything's cool, obviously, because this Ventnor thing has happened. And I noticed one day after pulling off the driveway that there's some drops of oil on the ground. Had a look around, and I discovered that the oil return hose from the turbo to the sump was leaking ever so slightly. I'd been on the phone to a friend of mine, Brian, who runs a garage on the island, and he owns a beautiful R32 GT-Air that's just stunning, right? He knows his stuff. He's like basically the only person that I trust to touch my cars other than me. So I give him a ring and I say, look, I've got a leaky oil return hose. Can I bring the car in for you to look at? I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, why? Why did you do that? Why didn't you just fix it yourself? Because I could have done, no problem. I totally could have done. But the thing is, whenever I have a car like that, I want receipts for absolutely everything. If and when I come to sell them on, I have an extensive folder of history to show that the car has been well loved and well looked after. It's kind of what I expect to see when I go and look at a car like that, that's heavily modified. I want to know that the person who won't get looked after it. So he agrees, and we set a date and a time to take the car over. Before I get on to the next bit of the story, I need to explain a little what this car was like to use, to drive, to own. When you were driving this car, you had to be quite careful with your throttle control. Interestingly enough, despite the power it had, you needed to drive the car as if it was slow. And what I mean by that is you had to plan things like overtakes quite carefully. For instance, if you have a slow car, you have to pull right the way back, leave some space for a run-up, and then you build up your speed, and then you pull out and overtake, right? So the RX-7 was kind of similar to that. If I just decided to pull out and overtake someone and put my foot down, it would spool the turbo and the rear wheels would spin. They would spin in the dry, they would spin in the wet, they would spin even if one of your tyres was on one of the painted markings on the road, so the separators or an arrow or something, it would spin the wheel. And the last thing that you want is to be at a 45-degree angle about to overtake someone and then spin the rear, because you'll end up hitting their arse with your arse and it's just a giant mess. So you had to pull back, build up speed, let the turbo start to spool, and once you're on boost, then you're good to go. So you're on boost and now you pull out and overtake. So the power is in a straight line rather than turning. So if I just decided to put my foot down at any time, it would just spin the rear wheels and leave a set of 11s on the ground. And that was great. I loved that about it. I loved that this car forced you to respect it. If you drove it like a twat, you would just crash. End of story. It wasn't a car for the faint-of-hearted. It wasn't a car for the inexperienced. I knew that that car would fuck me up if I decided to treat it like a wanker. And I love that about it. So, I've spoken to my buddy Brian, I've arranged the time to take the car in for him to have a look at the oil return pipe, and I've managed to kid my mum into coming with me to follow me up to the garage so that when I leave it there with him, she can drive me back home. There's a road that you guys are massively familiar with by now. I ride it quite often in my videos. It's called the Downs, and it's a huge hill that runs across the middle of the island. If I turn around, no, you can't see it from here. Yes, you can, it's behind me. I'm not going to do it because I'll die. It's behind me, right? It's a big hill that goes across the island. And we had to go across that to reach the garage. This one section of it is quite steep. When you're going onto the hill itself, it's quite steep, and then it levels out and you can drive along. So I turned left onto the start of this hill, and I decided to put my foot down a little, because it was just fun. That's just what I liked to do in the car. You know, if there's no one around, just give it a bit of a squirt and let the back end just, you know, slide around a little and then straighten up and away you go. At this point, I've kind of forgotten that Mum is with me. You know, I'm just enjoying driving the car. So I pull out onto this this road up towards the hill. I put my foot down. I leave a big streak of 11s up the road while the back of the car squirming left to right. And unbeknownst to me, behind me, Mum bursts into tears because she thinks she's about to witness her son crashing his car. Right, bless her. So she bursts into tears, and I'm completely unaware of this, completely unaware. So I do it a couple more times on the way there, and she is beside herself, absolutely distraught. And so we get to the garage. Mum stays in the car the whole time. She doesn't get out, which I thought was weird because she's a sociable lady. She gets on with all the people that I get on with. I go and talk to my buddy Brian, sort out what we need to sort out, and then I come back, jump in with Mum, and she tells me everything. She was so upset, so worried that I was in trouble, bless her. And what do I say? Because I'm a young fucking idiot, I say, don't worry, Mum, it's fine. I do it all the time. Twat. Now, I loved that RX-7, I really did. Probably my favourite car to date, actually. And so I actually didn't end up with the RX-7 for very long. I sold it to a French guy, actually, who flew over to Gatwick. I met him on the mainland. He bought it, drove it back down to the south of France, where, as far as I'm aware, to this day, it lives on as a track car. He had a Toyota Supra 2JZ, beautiful car, and he wanted something else, but slightly different. You know, something similar, but a little different. What a machine. Anyway, people, this concludes the story of making my mother cry. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to punch the like button. If you dislike the video, well, you can go ahead and punch the dislike button if you want. But in the meantime, I've been Smo. You guys have been awesome. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.